episode 9. Today we're talking about staccato and spiccato. So we're going to look at how we achieve it physically with our bow, and how to accurately and repetitively reproduce it the same way every time, etc., 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 all that good stuff, and how it relates to certain pieces of music. So diving it right away, the first two things we got to know about staccato and spiccato is A, where in the hand it comes from, this hand, like how to achieve it, and B, where in the bow should I use spiccato and staccato. So for every bow, it's always at the balance point. For my bow, it's right around here. I'm holding it with my thumb and index finger, and wherever the bow is perfectly balanced like this, that's where you should be doing the majority of your staccato and spiccato. So. Gets the cleanest, most clearest sound right about wherever your balance point is. For me, it's right there. For someone else, it could be slightly off by a little bit. I knew one person who had a balance point here, which was really, really, really rare. Most of the time, it's going to be right in this area. So that's the area of the bow where you want to have your balance point at, because that's where it's going to be cleanest and clearest. As far as where it comes from in the right hand, this is the finger we want to focus on. The index finger gives impulses, the wrist relaxes into it, and sometimes gives a flick if we need to start the pattern up again. But for the most part, your hand is relaxed, you're getting little impulses from your index finger, and that's what creates the initial attack. The bounce is created by the bow itself because it's at that perfect balance point, so it's bouncing and coming off. The hand is controlling how much it bounces off, so... I barely moved the bow off the string. In fact, it didn't come off at all. It was just bouncing, and there were impulses with my hand going on. My wrist was relaxed, and I occasionally flicked it to get the pattern going again. But the bow was doing most of the work. It was basically just doing this kind of thing the entire time. It was still on the string, but it was just mostly bouncing, mostly just having a little bit of a bouncing attack. So that's the way to achieve the most efficient spiccato and staccato too. You want it to be as close to the string as possible. If you're having that, it's way too much work, and your arm's going to wear out within a minute. And you don't want that. When you're playing Schumann scherzo, you want to conserve as much energy as possible, so you keep that bow really close to the string. And that was a really fine spiccato. It wasn't the cleanest. I need to practice my scherzo, but that's the idea you want. You want it close to the string, conserve energy, keep it clean. Now, how we achieve it accurately every time just comes through repetition and muscle memory. Once you start memorizing the feel of your bow, like how it reacts, some bows bounce longer, some bounce shorter. And what I mean by that is by period of time. Like some bounce for a longer period of time. You don't need to restart it as often. Some have a much smaller window of time, so you have to keep restarting it. See, for my bow, it's a kind of a short window of time because I have to keep restarting it. I mean, some bows I've played with, it's just gone right off. So the key to that is just practicing it and memorizing how your hand reacts. You want it to feel just kind of like this the whole time. You just want to be relaxed, and you want the bow to do your work. After that, it's just memorizing how your bow works. If you can figure out where and when you need to restart, that's perfect, because then you can just give either a little impulse with the index finger or your flick of the wrist. Just little tiny movements like that. So if I'm doing was a really fine, very tiny bounce, but I was just doing that. If I needed an extra bit every now and then, a little bit of impulse just to get it started or to give an accent somewhere. So that's how we achieve consistency, is just by practice and memorizing how the bow feels. And that's a very individual thing. Now if we know how the hand works, and it works properly every time with us, but this isn't responding, there's a couple things we can do to fix that. One of which I learned when I was working on the Tchaikovsky scherzo, etc., etc., etc. It's been a while. But my teacher taught me this technique, and it really helps to clean up the spiccato. It's practicing it note by note, but in triplets. So. So what you would do is just take it note by note and just bounce it at the tip like this. A really controlled, even bounce. And what that does is it really fine-tunes everything down here and forces the bow to respond to you. If your bow is not responding here, then there's something wrong with your bow. But if you have a good bow and you're doing this, it should respond. Then when you get back down to here, it's crystal clear. That's one way to do it. Another way is to just use the thing we were talking about with Kreutzer 2 and use beat displacement. So if we were doing Schumann scherzo, so and so for that one, if we wanted to do beat displacement, we just like obviously you do this with the metronome, it's hard to do without. So unless you have a really internalized metronome beat going on inside you, which I've kind of built up by this point. But beat displacement helps so much with cleaning up spiccato. It helps so much. You can do the. You can even use it on Kreutzer too. It's better to use repertoire like the Schumann scherzo if you want to really clean up some spiccato that way. So when we're talking about building up spiccato, like starting from scratch, we get this, we run across this all the time, like how do we build up the speed? And when I'm working on spiccato myself or with any of my students, like if they've just learned it and they just figured out how the hand works, I mean obviously the spiccato is kind of slow, but if I want to get them up to Tchaikovsky scherzo speed, etc., 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 what we do is, I'd have them practice at the tip, that thing, but that's very slow. And that just helps to get this fixed up. But if we want to get a good gradual build-up, it's just starting from scratch, a slow build-up. Paying attention to every single note, making sure every one of them has a good bite, a good attack, and a good release. So what I mean by bite, attack, and release is there's a bite, an attack of the note, and you've released it. So there's three components to each of those notes. It's just kind of a nice way to build it up from really fine-tuning everything and then just gradually smoothing it out to be a much cleaner whole. So if you can finesse it down to those three things, the bite, attack, and release, in really slow practice, then when you build it up, that should remain, that should stay, and it should be really good. So that's how I really distill it down to its basic essence, the bite, attack, and release, and then just build it up from there gradually speeding it up, and then the patterns learned in the hand in the process help to make it so much better at the end. Alright guys, that's our video for today. I hope you liked it. I love working with spiccato and staccato. This is like one of my super passions, and I really love it to death. And I hope you got some really good stuff out of it. Stay tuned for our next episode. I'll be posting it again next week. Again, I really appreciate all the views and in the comments, etc., etc., etc. If you like what you see, hit like, subscribe, notifications, whatever you like. Even hit share with your friends, send it to a teacher, have them critique me and yell at me, because that's always fun. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and I will be seeing you in the next video.